Alright, today I'm going to be trying to make a sort of spiral Christmas tree. And so this is an idea in my head. I have no idea if it's going to work. I'm hoping that I can sort of get a scroll on the bottom for a base and then another scroll which we can sort of pull out into this spirally tree. I've no idea if it's going to work. Let's have a go. Alright, I've got this piece of 15 by 3. We can start breaking it down. And I want to forge a really nice long taper on both ends. I'll start from the middle of the bar just because it then becomes a lot easier to work in the coal forge, so you're not poking a load of steel through the end of the fire. We've got this nice long taper out on this end. What I've got to do now is leave this to cool down and then flip it around and start forging out the same taper but on the other end. So we have these nice two really long tapers coming on both ends, so there's no section that is just the 15 by 3 standard bar. It's all been forged. It all has that nice forged look and these elegant tapers. So, we've got a decision to make now on what to do with the bar. So we could just leave it as it is, nice and sort of sleek and clean, as we spiral this up into this sort of tree shape. But I think I want to add a little bit of texture to it. And so the two textures that I'm thinking of is either the ball peen, which will be sort of spotty, or a cross peen, which is going to be stripy. I think I'm going to go with the cross peen because that sort of, the stripiness may resemble more tree-like characteristics, perhaps, of sort of having the lines going along there perpendicular to the sides to almost represent the needles of the Christmas tree, if you would like. And also it just gives it a little bit of something, a little bit more texture rather than it being sort of this clean material, which, I mean, the clean material sort of gives a very sleek look to it and it looks nice, but I think for this I'm going to add a little bit more texture to it. I'm going to begin to scroll this up for the base of the tree before I draw this taper back anymore. It's going to be quite a lot of the steel out of the coal fire and there's not much space in my forge. So I'll begin to scroll this up so that I can then get this bar actually in the fire to heat it up to then put the texture on. Get the end set, as always, with a scroll. Most important part, so everything follows it. So you can see that I'm bending this or scrolling it on the wider side, so it can be a bit harder to bend and sort of keep track of the scroll, because the steel doesn't want to bend on that wider side. It wants to sort of twist, as you can see there. So you just got to keep on coming back and make sure that it is flat as you then carry on bending and scrolling this bar up. You can continue this cross-peen texture along the bar now, and then continue getting the base just a little bit of a bigger scroll, sort of about to there, as that's where this taper then begins. And so my idea of to get the sort of spiral tree coming up off the base is to do another scroll on this end, which then sits on top of this one, and then we can sort of pull it out, or at least that's my thinking. Hopefully it's going to work. Let's have a go. Now we can continue the texture along the rest of this taper. All this taper now has the texture on, so what I'm going to do is scroll this up so it's sitting on top of the base, and then pull that scroll out so it's sort of coming out the top in this spiral. And it's going to be a slightly different scroll to this, as it's going to be a roll-up scroll, so it'll be really tight, and then the end isn't going to be quite as tight as this as well. The end's going to sort of have a circle on, so it's not a tight scroll, but then it's a roll-up around the circle. I'll just show you what I mean. It'll be easier than trying to explain it. So this just wants to be a circle at the start rather than a scroll, as I think a too tight a scroll on the end will mess the top of the tree up. So I think it needs to be loose at the top, but then a roll-up scroll after that. So that's what I mean, as it's a circle rather than a tight scroll, but now we're going to form a roll-up scroll in the rest of this bar. Okay, so it looks pretty groovy at the moment, very flat. So what we've got to do now is sort of gradually bring it out, sort of pull it out like that, so we get the spiral coming up like a tree. I've got no idea what the best way to go about this, pulling this out, really. I think I'm just going to try and do it with two pairs of tongs. Just sort of work my way along. Well, it sort of vaguely resembles it. We need to obviously pull it out a lot more, but it's getting there now. We can actually see the shape of a tree forming. I'll go and take another heat now, I think, and then we can bring it out even more. I'm going to work on bringing the end out some more. It's getting there. I think this is probably one of those shapes that I feel as if I could tweak for hours and never make any better, just gradually make it worse. I'll faff around with it for a little bit longer, but I think that's probably going to be the basic shape that we're going to get out of it. So I'm pretty pleased with how it's turned out. You can see the spiral is reasonably even, and I think that having it sort of open, the top scroll open at the start of the scroll, if you sort of understand what I mean, we put that circle in before we rolled it up, sort of means that the end is a little bit more open, whereas if we did a really tight roll-up scroll, it would be really hard to open that back out into a spiral that's sort of moving up with the rest of the tree. I also quite like that texture that we've put on. It's quite cool how that has also sort of gone around the spiral as the piece goes up. But anyway, thank you for watching the video. Have a go at this in your own workshops. It's a bit of a tricky one to forge, trying to get those scrolls on top of each other and into trying to get the top scroll into the middle of the bottom scroll. That was quite tricky and quite hard to hold in a pair of tongs. But if you're feeling adventurous, have a go at it. Anyway, I'll see you on the next video. Thank you for watching.